Welcome to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast with your host, Brandon Seigel. I'm a published author, speaker, entrepreneur, and private practice strategist dedicated to transforming the way that healthcare functions. This podcast is all about empowering you to create the change you want to see. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. In this episode, we're talking about defining the purpose of your brand. Now, let me ask you, do you remember the first time you came up with your brand? What were you thinking about? What were you seeing? What was your intention for your brand? And I think a lot of the time we question, what is the purpose of a brand? Why do we come up with a brand? What does that mean? And honestly, there are different people that will tell you different things. And you have to figure out what the purpose of your brand is to you. My opinion is the purpose of my brand is to create an impact that someone understands and identifies what I do with that brand. And, I tend to like more literal brands, but there are plenty of people that create brands all the time. And what's incredible is they take a brand that has no literal meaning to someone and they create the meaning behind it. Even when you think of like Google, and maybe I'm wrong, okay? But Google, from my reality, when I heard Google, I'm like, I don't know what Google is. Like Google, googly eyes, all this stuff. Like when Google first came up with that brand, do you think anyone that they put the word Google in front of would know what they do, who they are, what not? They literally created a meaning out of thin air. So we've got brands like Apple, okay? If you said my company's called Apple, I would have thought you mean that you're selling fruit, just being honest with you. So that's where Apple has created its own brand, its own meaning. And now, with literally just an icon, it communicates a million things to you. And I think we forget how powerful a brand is, how it defines our identity, the communication, the impact, what is connected. But when we think of this, have you ever known anyone that you did not like in your childhood? And as a result, you would never name your child that name? I have, truly. There are plenty of people in my life, that big bully, I remember you, bully, and my child will never hold your name as a result. Because I don't want to associate my child with that brand, if that makes sense. Now, that might be short-sighted, but my point in bringing this up is brand means so much. Like now, we even utilize certain brand names and they turn into verbs, like or nouns or pronouns or whatever. And you think of it, it's like, okay, Brandon, don't be a Karen. Have you heard that before? Karen has become its own brand. What does Karen represent when we're saying don't be a Karen? Don't be a nag. Don't be a complainer, et cetera. And so we want to create a brand that all of a sudden people are right off the bat know who you are. They embrace it. They talk about it. They share it. And suddenly that icon, that apple means something. Now, I want to share with you. What's interesting is I personally believe that Apple is one of the best 21st century branding companies of all time. And I remember, obviously, in the 90s when, late 90s, early 2000s, we're talking the MP3 player, okay? And the MP3 player was the first digital mass approach to replacing cassette tape and whatnot, and CD and it. So what's interesting is the MP3 player, Sony had it, all of it. It didn't really stick. How many people today are like, oh, I got a portable Sony MP3 player? No, they're not. It wasn't until the iPod. The iPod is what truly took digital music to a new level. And the iPod became a brand. Now, I remember my first Apple IIc computer in my house. I remember the day we brought it home. I remember the games that we used to play on it. But it was not what Apple took, what was kind of like this crazy computer. And it wasn't until they built their brand, until they brought out, what did they do from a branding standpoint? There were two, in my opinion, two key products that they launched that changed the way that marketing and branding is done. And again, that brand is not just the name, it's the colors, it's all those pieces to it. It's creating an impact on someone through experience. And what I remember, one, was the iMac. And I remember kids going to college and wanting to get the colorful iMac. It was one of the first kind of screen and computer integrated into one, but they didn't just do that. It wasn't about the technology. It was about the color. It was about the brand. The iPod, same thing. You're talking to a guy who proposed to his wife with engraving, "Will you marry me?" on the back of an old school, like first edition iPod. Yep, that was me. I did that. And what was funny about that, just so you know, is that before I married my wife, Apple was not necessarily allowed in her household. They were like Sony MP3 only. So I actually brought the first iPod into my in-laws' house by proposing to my wife on it. Later, after the fact, my family worked for Apple and all different things. So we definitely expanded. But when I bring this together, I'm trying to share with you the product innovation wasn't what made Apple what Apple is. It was that they took an existing product. In my opinion, they may have done it a little bit better, but they built a brand. Do you remember those Apple commercials? It was cool. It was hip. It was, look at everything you do. And so what I want you to understand is healthcare has to develop a better brand. Imagine, and you may hate this, so some of you are Disney haters, but I'm going to ask you a question. If I told you that I was launching the first hospital of its kind, and we were going to replicate a Disney experience within the healthcare sector, and literally, let's just say I partnered with Disney and Disney said, we are developing the Disney medical experience. And you're going to come in and suddenly you're going to feel curated to, hi, welcome to Disney's healthcare system. And can we get you some water? Can we, what does that curated effect feel? And it's interesting because when I say Disney, some of you may agree with me that the first response is magic. Their brand is defining magic. So what if we were able to bring the magic into healthcare? What would that look like? It's all about that brand. It's all about that user experience. It's not just the name. It's not just the logo. It's literally your brand is an experience of consistency. And so when I tell you, you're going to go into a Starbucks, you should already know what that experience is. The brand is defined. It's consistent. The door color, the color of the walls, everything. And so right now, in my personal opinion, I think branding is the direct reflection on the patient experience that we create. And so when we're defining the purpose of the brand, in my reality, it is so that you have a uniform, consistent patient experience that translates and transforms expectations where people say, I want to go there. Now, from a brand standpoint, when we're defining what our brand is, we got to define, again, the name, the slogan, the colors, the experience, what is and what's not. And this doesn't just translate to patients, this translates to employees. When you go work for Google, there's a certain brand experience you're expecting when you go work for them. When you go work for Disney, there's a certain brand experience. When you go work for Starbucks, there's a certain brand experience. You know, the founder of Zappos was all about creating a brand experience. And he built his business as a brand. And so I'm a big believer that the best product does not mean you'll be successful. Okay? Best product, best service doesn't mean you'll be successful. But I do believe the best brand experience can take something that's not a good product or service and make it a successful product or service. So sometimes we have to look at, hey, yeah, we're a 30-minute standard appointment and that's not ideal, but how do we create a brand experience where people are choosing a 30-minute standard appointment in your brand experience over 60-minute that maybe doesn't have that same value, that same quality, that same experience? And I think that's really critical. And when I look at brands, I'm kind of a brand loyalist. You know, I'll give you an example. I tend to stay mostly at Marriott's. And you will say, well, that's so that you get the points. And that's because you have status. That's a small part, actually. What I like is that when I go to a Marriott, I know exactly what I'm getting. I know at the different categories of hotel, I know what the doors are like, there's a consistency that makes me feel comfortable. And so part of that brand experience, like if you want to open 25 clinics in your private practice, 25 different locations, that brand experience is crucial. You know, when I look at, so if you think about back in the day, franchises, a lot of you have come to me and you're like, I want to franchise my business. And I mean no disrespect, but most of you don't have a brand experience truly worth franchising. In order to franchise something, you have to have not only a demand of other business owners that want to operate within your confines, but you have to have something unique. It's not just a pretty logo. Some of you are like, oh, I got this great domain, I got this great brand and whatever. And I'm like, yeah, but I can create that same service offering and experience without you. What are you doing for me through that brand that makes it unique? And so you look at the brands, and there are plenty of successful coffee companies, but in my opinion, there's no brand that's more successful in the coffee space than Starbucks. That's a brand success story. So as we look at deconstructing the components of a brand, let's talk about the different things that make up this brand. So one is your brand identity. So when we talk about brand identity, we've got our logo, the visual symbol, emblem that represents the brand. We've got our color palette, the specific set of colors that we're using consistently across all brand materials. And then we've got typography. What are the fonts and style and use of text? We've got imagery, that style of images, illustrations, visual elements. And then we have the voice and tone. What's the personality? So I don't know if you know how many brands are connected to me. I have a lot of brands connected to me. And all of those brands have a similar brand identity, although they are separate. But you will notice, logo standpoint, there's a lot of similarities in just thickness of lines, approach, a little bit of quirkiness. A lot of my logos will include the fly high symbol, which is a bird. If you didn't figure it out, my last name is Seigel. Fly high, that actual terminology has been with me since I was a little child. Literally, I had like fly high businesses with my family from the start. So Fly High Business Builders was where we started. And then WellnessWorks Management Partners has that little bird, and WellnessWorks Medical Billing has that bird, and all those different things. And then if you look at the colors of all my companies synchronize. WellnessWorks Medical Billing, WellnessWorks Management Partners, Fly High Business Builders, Growth Code Conference, all of those. And then I'll throw a curveball. We have this other entity, which is Every Child Achieves. And although it's a totally different color palette, it's still got similar bubbliness to it. There is still imagery and a voice and tone that you could say, I see a correlation between all of these businesses. So that's part of our brand identity. Brand identity is knowing when you see a symbol and you're like, oh my gosh, that must be connected to that. That's very similar. So I'll tell you right off the bat, if you see a Nike swoosh, you know it's Nike. That swoosh, color, all those things, it's like ingrained in our head. So we've got our brand identity. The next one, in my opinion, is incredibly important. And this is where a lot of you do it for internal uses, but not external, meaning that you communicate it within your team, but you don't always communicate it with clients, community, etc. And that's our brand promise. So do you know your brand promise? And your brand promise has 3 pieces to it. The first piece is your value proposition. These are the unique benefits and the value that the brand promises to deliver to its customer. So different people have different things. For Every Child Achieves value proposition, it's to change the world one child at a time. So the value proposition that we're saying is that we're going to focus on your child as one child. We're not just treating you like you're a group. Each child has its own emphasis and focal point. Then we have our mission statement. This is that defines the brand purpose and goals. This is why. And I truly believe that this is my own reality. There are plenty of consultants and coaches and life coaches that will tell you different. But mission, to me, the mission is, why am I doing this? So I'm doing this because, so with WellnessWorks Management Partners, my why is that I want to change the way that healthcare functions. I actually literally want to change it. That first thing I opened up of like, what if hospitals felt like Disneyland? I wish I could create that. I desire to create a unique experience in which healthcare functions in a more rewarding way for patients and for those involved. And so knowing your why is really important. And then the last is vision. And I find a lot of people mix up vision and mission. So my mission is I want to change the way that healthcare functions. That's not actually my vision, that's my mission. My vision is a forward-looking statement that outlines the brand's aspiration and long-term goals. So I want to be the most effective medical billing, revenue cycle management, and human resources fractional solution for private practices throughout the country. I have a vision to support private practices. And for me, like being very transparent, I just want to know I can create a difference in your practice. My vision is that I can be the difference maker for your private practice. And that becomes that brand promise. So the value proposition, how you benefit, what you promise to your customers, then your mission statement, your vision statement. So your value proposition could be, I want to increase your profit by 5% next year. My mission is I want to change the way that healthcare functions. And my vision is to unlock greater resources for you through medical billing and HR. Plain and simple. Now, as we go to the next part of deconstructing the components of a brand, I want you to think about brand positioning. I want you to think about who your target audience is. See, that's something that's hard because sometimes we go really broad, sometimes we go less broad. Sometimes we go too zoomed in. So I work with a lot of occupational, physical, and speech therapists, and I love working in that sector. But I also work with functional medicine, and I also work with pediatricians, and I also work in the health and wellness space. My vision has been that there are several different oceans of healthcare providers that I feel we align really well with. But then I also know areas that sometimes we don't align as well with. So we don't do much in the behavioral health space. We don't do much in the dental space. We don't do as much in the chiro space. And knowing that from a target audience is really important. There are people that just do dentists or just do chiros. And that's part of it. I'm like, let them do that. And then our market position. How is the brand perceived in relation to its competitors? So when I look at my brand positioning, and I'm sharing this more for just so you can see the example. My brand position is I want to be the most authentic and sincere voice among my competitors. And I don't need to compete. I would rather everyone, I think there's enough need out there that I'd rather work with competitors, but I want to be the person that's true to my word. And as my mom kind of made me, my middle name is Merit. And she said, Brandon, you're going to be a man of merit. And so my market position is I want to be a man of merit. I want to do right by my clients. I want to be authentic. I want to be transparent. Don't have to be the biggest. Don't have to be the best. Don't have to be the most successful. Just have to be true, real, and do right by others. That's my vision. That's my goal to the best of my ability. And then that unique selling proposition, the distinct feature or benefit that sets your brand apart from competitors. So, for our unique selling proposition, as an example, our medical billing program will support your day-to-day billing. We will bill every day. And guess what? 30 days notice, if we're not cutting it, you get to get rid of us. So that's our medical billing unique selling proposition. We want to work in your system. We want to be an extension of your team. We want to work your claims every day. There is not a single day that should be missed. And if we don't uphold our end of the bargain, we're out in 30 days. There's no 1-year contract. There's no none of that. And that's part of our differentiator within that space. On our fractional HR and our HR advisor program, the idea is we want to solve the hard problems. We want to be the bad cop and the good cop. We want to integrate into your practice as your chief HR team, your officer, your team. We want to get to know your team. And day in and day out, we want it to be almost perceived as we're an employee within the organization or we're on your board. And so that integration as a board member and not just a payroll company trying to do HR. We're really trying to separate the way that people look at what HR is. We're not a payroll company doing HR services. We're not a technology company doing HR, and we're not a benefits broker trying to do HR. We are an HR team. We are the people business behind organizations like you. So that's how we create our unique selling proposition within that side. So we got our brand identity. We got our brand promise. We have our brand positioning. Now the next thing we got to think about, and this is where I talk about Apple, brand experience. What does that customer experience look like? The overall experience that customers have with the brand, including interaction, service, and satisfaction. If I am going to an Apple store, I know exactly what that customer experience is. Very important. For me, on a healthcare standpoint, I think customer experience is about knowing what to expect. Knowing that when I walk in the door, my therapist will be ready to treat me or my doctor will be available. Knowing the sequence of, hey, Brandon, personally, I'd rather someone say, hey, Brandon, how are you today than Mr. Seigel. I always think of Mr. Seigel as my father or my grandfather. So is your brand experience treating people corporate-wise or relationship-wise? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What are your follow-ups? What are the things that make it an experience to remember? So I went to breakfast this morning. If you said, what was your customer experience like? It was fantastic. What made it fantastic? Well, I walked in and the first thing they said is, welcome. We're so glad to have you this morning. That statement, welcome. We are so glad to have you this morning. Very important. Second thing is, within minutes of walking in, they were ready to ask, coffee, juice, water, what can we do? Then it was, how much time would you like to review the menu so that we can best support you? That was the next thing. Came back within that time, and guess what? Less than 10 minutes, food was hot, ready to go, and there was a check-in point 3 times while I ate without it was just eye contact. And what ended up happening was that person also could see I was busy and was like, here's your check. Let me know anything I can do. That customer experience had everything. And part of that brand experience is also touch points, all the points of interaction between the brand and its customers. So website, social media, packaging, customer service, follow-up emails. I personally don't love funnels. I'm not, but that's me. Other people like funnels. Funnel marketing is when you put your name in a hat and you get like 36 emails depending on what their trail is. And it's like, hey, thanks for this and thanks for that and whatever. I personally, that doesn't create a user experience that I like. Other people do like it. And the data may show that that's the highest sales cycle organizations are successful with that. I actually would rather, when I'm interacting with a brand, that they allow me to opt into what would be the customer experience I want. I'd like a newsletter, not just sign up for a newsletter, but I'd like a newsletter monthly. I'd like someone to call me, or I'd like a text, or I'd rather fill out what is going to be the experience that I'm seeking, because different people have different goals when it comes to those touch points. The next thing for brand experience is consistency. This is where you fail. Healthcare fails with consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Could I guarantee that every single doctor is ready at 9:05 a.m.? That's my point. Can I guarantee? How do we create consistency with when labs are, when things are, etc.? I had a terrible experience in healthcare where it literally took me 3 months to get an MRI, and the place they were sending me couldn't even do the MRI. But it took literally, they kept canceling appointments and not telling me why, till one day I showed up ready for the MRI and they said, I don't know why you keep getting referred to us. We don't do this type of MRI. This is a hospital MRI and you have to go to a hospital system. That consistency, it failed me. The next thing is brand equity, your reputation, how your overall perception, credibility of the brand in the market, etc. This is also, for where I'm at, what I'm doing, this comes back to kind of that market perception for me, and positioning is like, I really want to be seen with, hey, he cares, he's authentic, he'll try and do right, all of those things. Customer loyalty. How do we define customer loyalty that they're like, oh my gosh. And I'm the first to say, look, I'm not right for everyone. So I'd rather you know that you can be loyal to me and you can still go to competitors. You're not going to I'm not going to be like, how dare you go to ABC this? No. If I'm not the right fit, I want you to find the right fit. And to be honest, what I'm trying to protect you from is not my competitors. It's from the snakes in the water, because there's a lot of snakes out there. We got to look at our brand value. What is that financial worth of the brand? Often influenced by its reputation and customer loyalty. And then the brand culture, coming back to values, beliefs, internal branding, your employee engagement. I recently took my son out to dinner, and it was so funny because I sat down and there was a woman sitting by herself eating dinner, and she was wearing her company's jacket. She was a speech language pathologist. And what I liked was the jacket actually highlighted more her than the brand. But because it highlighted her, I wanted to know what the brand was. And it made me actually respect the brand more. And I knew she was an employee, not the owner, because what it was showing was this person and their credentials we are excited to promote. And we're excited they're part of our grouping. But it wasn't about promoting the practice. It was actually about promoting the clinician. And I thought that was pretty powerful. And the fact that that employee wanted to wear it was a great reflection on the company and the employee. So I want you to think about those things. So how does your brand, vision, and purpose coexist? We need to have alignment. The brand should reflect and communicate the company's purpose and vision. Consistency across all three elements ensures a coherent and authentic organizational identity. We need to reinforce everything. The vision and purpose provide a foundation for your brand. The brand, in turn, reinforces the vision and purpose through every customer interaction, marketing campaign, product offering, etc. We need to have guidance. The purpose and vision guide the brand strategy, helping to make decisions that align within the organization's core values and long-term goals. And then last, but certainly not least, is motivation. Together, your brand, your vision, and your purpose will inspire and motivate employees and customers by providing a clear sense of direction and meaning fostered by a unified culture. And it is crucial. So our brand, our vision, and our purpose are going to coexist with alignment, reinforcement, guidance, and motivation. I don't want you to just create a pretty picture. I don't want you to just create some cliche purpose statement. I want you to create an experience. And for those who don't know, I put on a conference annually called the Growth Code Conference. The last 3 years, it's been focused on a very specific demographic of occupational physical speech therapists. We will be having more conferences in the future for health and wellness and other sectors of healthcare. But I bring it up because for me, the conference is about creating an experience. It is about unifying a vision and purpose of people to connect, collaborate, and grow. Every single smell, scent, flavor, look, food, minute, second has intention, purpose, consistency. It is more crucial to create that consistent experience than it is to create the dollar of profit. Because for me, that is how we level up. That is how we grow our business. That is how we shift to the next gear, is the consistency and overachieving the experience is so crucial. So when you communicate your brand and its evolution, I want you to do 6 things. 6 things. Are you ready for it? 1, I want you to create a clear narrative. I want you to create that clear narrative. 2, I want you to engage your audience. 3, I want you to leverage visuals. 4, I want you to communicate changes transparently. 5, I want you to highlight your core values. And 6, I want you to use testimonials and endorsements. Plain and simple. Those 6 things. Now, things happen, things change, people leave, people come, funding changes. You need to be really clear with how you're going to communicate, not just your brand, but the evolution of your experience. So in this episode, we talked about deconstructing the components of a brand. How does your brand, vision, and purpose coexist? How to communicate your brand and its evolution. And I want you to think about this. Did you know that 89% of executives believe that a strong sense of purpose drives employee satisfaction and overall company success? That's from the Harvard Business Review. That purpose in your brand is going to drive more success than you know. And aligning people. So what if you asked each employee to have their own predefined brand? What is your brand? What is your purpose? All those things. I think it's really important because I think Brandon Seigel has a brand, and I think all my companies have a brand. I think the podcast has a brand, each different, but they are uniform. So imagine curating a brand for every employee within your organization. In the words of Seth Godin, a brand's purpose is not just to sell, but to connect, inspire, and build trust. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I hope that you've enjoyed our episode. If you liked us, please subscribe, share us, like us, comment. We're played anywhere where podcasts can be streamed. We're also on YouTube. As always, I'm here for you. I care. And together we can thrive, not just survive. Thank you for tuning in to the Private Practice Survival Guide podcast. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every one of you. Exciting news. We're now available everywhere, from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to YouTube or anywhere you like to listen to your podcasts. So watch, listen, and reach out. If you love this episode, please drop a 5-star review. It truly means the world to me. Are you looking for more ways to elevate your practice? If so, now is your chance. Reach out, go to my website, or email me at brandon@wellnessworksmp.com. And remember, it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.